This episode of the ChatGTM podcast is brought to you by Budget Branders, your source for custom branded cups and bags. So what makes them unique? Well, they source using a hybrid supply model, they import to keep prices low, and they have domestic backup to fill in the gaps. Learn more at budgetbranders.com or connect with Budget Branders on LinkedIn. And now it's time for the show. Hey, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome back to the ChatGTM podcast. If you're a returning guest, if you're joining us for the first time, thank you for tuning in and being part of our community. My name's Michael Beck. I'm your irascible host. And today I'm here with a very special episode of the ChatGTM podcast. This is one of those moments where I actually get to have a founder's conversation with somebody who's created one of the most iconic brands in the country, I'd argue almost in the world. This is Mr. Tim Gannon, one of the co-founders of Outback. How you doing today, Tim?
Good.
Yeah.
I like the world. I like that world
too, right? It's a big stage.
Yeah, we always wanted to be worldwide.
Absolutely. So I'm going to do a quick read in about you here. So the audience has a baseline. So every iconic brand has a beginning, but the greatest stories aren't really about business. They're about people willing to risk everything to build it. And today's guest helped create, like we said, one of the most recognizable brands in the world. As a co-founder of Outback Steakhouse, Tim Gannon helped redefine casual dining and build a company that would span the globe. Now, his new book, Bloomin' Adventures, is that the name? Bloomin' Adventures? I love it. It isn't just a story about Outback. It's a story of grit, partnership, reinvention, and the people who shape their lives along the way. Like I said before, Tim, it's definitely an honor to meet you today, and welcome
nice
to the show. Absolutely. So let's dig in.
Okay.
First thing, I met a friend of yours, Mr. David Alvarado.
Yes.
Yeah, and David's going to come by a little bit later, say hi. When I talked to him, the first thing out of his mouth, he goes, you got to ask Tim about the saddle. And he gave me a little bit of background on it. And so let's talk about that. In 1987, correct me if I'm wrong on this, you had $37 in your pocket and you sold your prized polo saddle for $250 so you could afford the gas to drive to Tampa. Is that correct?
Almost.
Okay.
I had $0 in my pocket and a saddle on my hand, and I sold the saddle for $250.
Mm-hmm.
When I arrived after driving to Tampa, I had $37.
You used up all your money on gas. Okay,
yeah.
so that was what was left in the tank, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Well, years later, you bought that same saddle back.
I did.
Right?
Well, I never really wanted to sell the saddle in the first place. It was the last possession I had to connect me with my passion of polo. It was given to me when I was 16 years old. And my best friend's father, who was a polo player, said, take this saddle and you may one day become a great polo player. And I believed in that. And it's strange that took me through, and I kept the saddle. So it was painful to sell the saddle, but I knew I was going to get it back.
Yeah.
And it was part of the transaction is I'll sell you the saddle. You're going to get me to Tampa. I'm going to start a great steakhouse. I'm going to come back and buy the saddle and become a champion polo player.
I love it.
Yeah.
There's a phrase, I think the first time I heard it was in the movie Hunt for Red October. Remember that movie?
I love that movie.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
And part of it, you might remember Sean Connery said that when Cortez came to the New World, he burned his ship so his men would be better motivated.
Yes.
That's when you burned your ship.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
What did that investment represent to you, though?
Well, I had the saddle. And, I had given up a check for $1 million that was given to me by Al Copeland, founder of Popeyes.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked for him, and he didn't want me to leave. So he said, I'm going to make you a check and make you an offer that you're not going to refuse. I said, so he wrote out a check for a house, all my debt, and I had $350,000 in debt at 18% interest. Huge amount of debt from a project that I did that didn't work out in the World's Fair. So I looked at that check. I stared at it for a long, long time, and I ripped it up, and I said, I don't want to make my money for someone. I want to make my money with someone. Okay. And Chris Sullivan, I knew, was the guy that was going to make that happen with me and Bob Basham. So I knew they were there. So it was a not a transactional decision, but it was a strategic decision. Strategy in the fact of long-term, how am I going to really get where I'm at? Not with this check that's going to pay my bills and buy me a house, but let me go and start a company where I'm an equity owner. And And that's what happened.
Now, did you track the journey of that saddle from the moment you sold it just to make sure you were able to get it back at some point?
I knew exactly who I sold it to. And he made an effort to say, listen, I want all your air conditioning contracts in order to get the saddle back. He was in the air conditioning business. I said, that's not going to happen. I said, that's not going to happen. I don't have the ability to give you a contract on all of our air conditioning.
Right.
But I'll buy you the best saddle in the world and replace it with a $1,000 saddle. So I gave him $1,000 to get the saddle back.
Wow. Well, knowing that you're such a fan of equestrians, I have to ask this is just a side journey. What was the finest horse you've ever known?
The finest horse that I ever owned was a gray horse, a thoroughbred called Michelita. Michelita was the finest horse I ever owned, and I scored the winning goal in Spain, Soto Grande, Spain, on this horse, and that goal made us number one in the world.
Wow.
So great memory, and I have a picture of that special goal that made in Spain that won the game.
Wow. So before there was the Bloomin' Onion, there was Tim Gannon, the young man. What kind of kid were you?
I was an adventurer. That's why the book is Bloomin' Adventures. It starts off with me climbing out of the car of my mother's car at 3 years old, sliding down the car and heading down the beach for adventure. And I was on the news that night, and my sister saw me and said, "Mom, I think I just saw Tim on television." She didn't know I was gone.
What?
She had single mother, 6 children, didn't know all of them where they were at all times. So, but there was a safe town, so I wasn't in a lot of danger, and I was well taken care of by the Fort Lauderdale police. And so that was my first adventure. And then, at 16, I bought a 1957 Chevrolet.
Ooh.
And a beautiful car, and $600, and drove it to El Paso, Texas with a friend in algebra class. And we went out to his father's ranch and learned the sport of polo. We rode horses on the Rio Grande River, right there on the side of Juarez, and had adventures and incredible fun living on a horse farm. And that was my first introduction to polo and to the adventures of the West, in the Wild West.
What drew you to polo?
Pardon me?
What drew you to polo?
My best friend, who was in algebra class, and we were tired of algebra, so we started talking about polo, and it was far more interesting than algebra. And so I said, "Show me the sport." And he said, "Let me take you to El Paso."
Yeah.
So we went to El Paso. We had a wonderful time, and then we took the car and we drove to New York City. 16 years old. Going to the World's Fair in New York City in 1966, and had a great time in New York City. 2 kids, just living life with a convertible, driving through. I remember the Lincoln Tunnel and how much fun that was as a 16-year-old boy to see New York for the first time.
Big city then, huh?
Big city and big fun.
Wow. And when did you start working? What, 16 is when you started working too? Or when did you
No, I started at 9 years old.
Wow.
9 years old was selling newspapers. I had a big newspaper route at 12. At 14, I had 900 customers, had a motorcycle that delivered newspapers very quickly, three different routes, 300 apiece. So I was making money early, and I knew how to make money and loved it.
So having started so early, what did those early jobs teach you that still hang in there with you today? The principles you brought with you, what did it teach you? I imagine a lot of grit and resilience came in with that.
Yeah, work hard and you'll get paid for it. The harder you work and the more customers you have, the better you'll do. And I had 900. Most newspaper routes were 300, and I had 900 because I had the ability. I had an employee that used to fold all the newspapers for me, so I would just come by, take a load, and head off again. So I had it all set up as a business.
Wow. And so imagine you're a kid, you're walking around going, there's got to be a better way. And then you got a motorcycle and you made it more efficient. And you optimized your operations, as they call it, right?
And then I started parking cars at the Mike High at 16.
Yeah.
So that was nice. And it was fun because it gave me the adventure of parking cars for Johnny Carson, Liberace,
Oh, wow.
Tarzan. You know, everybody came into this restaurant to visit. It was one of the most popular restaurants in South Florida at the
Was
time.
that Johnny Weissmuller? Tarzan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tarzan. And instead of a tip, what we used to do is make him do the, we made him do that for us, and it shook the roof.
That's absolutely great. So Tim, you've worked on almost you've worn every hat in the restaurant industry, it seems like, or worked every spot, and you got a sense of it. What point in time do you realize, I don't want to work in it, I want to build something?
You know, I think early on when I was in the restaurants and realized that, you know, one restaurant you're gonna work really hard to be successful. But, you know, so I needed more than one so that I could get the freedom to play polo and the money. And so I knew that that's when I found Al Copeland, who wanted to build a chain of restaurants.
Right.
So I helped him with Copeland's restaurants, and we were really successful. And we did the best Creole food under the roof from all the great chefs of New Orleans under one roof. Black and red fish, roast Cajun duck, andouille sausage, etouffee, po' boys. We did it all. We had a great menu.
That's beautiful. Looking back, right, young entrepreneurs are probably watching right now, thinking about some things, and they might have the wrong things in mind, what they think is important. What's something when you were a younger man you thought was important, they look back on, you know what, that really wasn't?
The only thing important when you're starting a business is who your partners are going to be.
Boy, isn't that?
I mean, if I can
in
teach
business and out.
Yes,
right?
Yes, all the way through. How you make a decision on who your partner is critical. I mean, I worked really hard before I was 40. And then with Outback, I worked really hard, but the benefits were so much greater because I had great partners that knew my value and trusted my value.
Yeah. Trust is a big operative word though, right?
Huge.
Yeah.
I mean, when I ripped up that check for $1 million to come work for one of my partners, he was, when he finally heard the story after he read my book,
right,
30 years later.
It took him that long?
Yeah. Well, I kept it quiet.
Wow.
I didn't tell the people the story. I wasn't proud of my financial situation at the time, to be honest, to start a new partnership with a guy that's A, in debt, B, has loans over the top of him, and hasn't found success. I had found success, but not for me personally. I had found success for other people.
Right.
So now is my turn to find success for me with other people. Is a very key component to that.
In your book, Tim, you talk a lot about grit. Do you believe that resilience is something you're born with, or is that something that life beats into you?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
All I can say is resilience is important. We were here in this restaurant when we first opened up 38 years ago, I was just with our kitchen manager from 38 years ago.
Wow.
having lunch, and you realized that it was slow in the beginning. We would have 30, 40 customers at night, and it didn't look well. And and so Chris Sullivan came up to me, poked me in the chest very hard, and said, "Did you get this food right?" And it was a moment of truth for me that I had to say, it's the only thing we got right was the food. We're in this location across from a funeral parlor in a dilapidated shopping center that had been a restaurant 3 times over, and we had done no marketing. Right. And nobody knew what an Outback Steakhouse, what an Australian-themed restaurant was meant to be. They had no path, no track record, nothing to equate it to. So it was very a mystery to people. What is Outback, and why did they call it Outback? So that was a key part of our success, was to learn that we have to go market this brand, and we have to take it out to people that they weren't coming here. So we went and we cooked out in the alleys and the side aisles to do for radio stations to cook in their hallways.
So they talked
And we
about
brought the blooming onion out into them so they could, at 7:30 in the morning, be eating a blooming onion made from scratch and talk about it during a radio drive. K105, I think, was the radio station here that launched us.
Well, that was the social media of the time too. That
was.
You went to the DJs.
Early
the DJs
morning
told the story.
radio drives was it. They owned the media waves. This was before Instagram, before Facebook, before any of that. There was the radio shows.
So I got to ask you, you know, we're sitting in, let's call it the mothership. This is store number one, as they call it, right?
Yes.
First, why an Australian concept? And how did you guys come to that idea?
Well, we had the menu done. The menu was done. We knew we wanted to serve great food with great flavor, bold flavors, with the bloomin' onion, with coconut beer battered shrimp. We had all these fabulous recipes. I had 2,000 recipes when I came from New Orleans after spending 10 years there, kind of going through working with all the chefs. So
Go ahead. We're bringing a special guest on this show today because this is who we're going to talk about next, is the bloomin' onion.
Wow, and that's a good-looking bloomin' onion.
Well, they better get it right for you.
Yeah.
All right. You probably have some opinions on the perfect one.
I do.
Yeah, but you were saying.
Well, you need to pull each petal out like this.
I thought you never asked.
Right? And dip it in.
I am dipping a bloomin' onion with the inventor of the bloomin' onion. This is my day here, too.
That's the gateway to heaven.
Yes, it is. I imagine it's a great margin item, too.
Yes. It's the onion hasn't really changed its price in years.
Yeah.
And it's delicious.
I might be snacking on the sorry.
Yeah, the magic of it is the flavor in the flour mixed with the flavor in the sauce. There's 37 ingredients in the sauce, 17 spices in the flour, and how they blend together.
And a nice bit of acid, a little bit of heat, nice crunch.
Yeah, and it's at the right level. It brings you right to the point where you say, spicy, bold, not too spicy.
And that onion just melts once you take the bite in there. So you have that nice crispy coating. That's beautiful.
Getting the onion cooked perfectly at a certain amount of degrees for a certain amount of time, getting it. And we have timers on every onion.
I love it. All right. So we're at the origin of a Australian concept being born in South Florida.
Right.
So how did we get there?
So we were about a mile away from here on a Sunday night. Remember it well, when we said, well, we need a name for this restaurant. And no one could come up with names. I mean, I was a food guy. I wasn't a marketing person. Chris was kind of a marketing guy. But we never liked the names he came up. No one liked it. So Bob started talking about the movie he went to, the Crocodile Dundee. And
that's right. We had the Australian craze then,
Yeah. And he started talking about the Outback. And we said, why don't we just call it Outback? So one of the girls that was there at the table got up and wrote Outback with red lipstick on a mirror behind us so that we could see what it looked like. What's that?
That was your first sign, POC?
Yeah. And so we wrote it up there on this mirror, and we looked at it and we said, wow, that really looks great. Let's call it the Outback Steakhouse.
And then you engineered the menu after you named it? Alice Springs chicken and all these other great things you have?
Yes. So then I had to go to work and find out. I had to find out what Australian food's about.
Yeah.
And when I did, I discovered, we had better recipes than, they have pavlova. They have Vegemite sandwiches, which aren't memorable.
I don't think they'll fly here.
No, they're good for Australians.
Sure.
Because they grew up on it. That's all they knew was a Vegemite. And, so we decided that we would keep our food and just put Australian names and things. And I thought we would get a lot of criticism for that, that we weren't truly Australian.
Yeah.
But we did okay. I mean, we surpassed that because the food was so great. I don't think people judged it whether it's Australian or not. It's just great food.
Right.
So that with the Foster's ice cold beer, you're on your way.
Foster's Australian for beer.
Yeah.
Love it. Tim, if 25-year-old Tim Gannon was sitting across from you right now, what advice would you give him?
Do everything you just did. Only do it a little bit better, a little faster.
A little bit faster?
Find what I would say is, Tim, watch out for partners that don't have your back. That get rid of those and find the partners that do.
Yeah.
I would have just think if I would have started Outback at 25 years old, how much fun I would have had. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm still having fun.
I can imagine.
But I would have had a lot more fun had I done Outback earlier. And but timing is everything.
Absolutely.
Casual dining, bringing Outback into the casual dining sector of chef-inspired food.
Mhm.
It was the right time. Regional cooking was coming alive. Cajun cooking. President Reagan did blackened redfish for his economic summit in Williamsburg in 1984. So in the 80s, regional cuisine, regional taste were coming alive, and people had credibility in American flavors. So that's what opened the door for us to launch Outback with chef-inspired food.
I love it. So let's start talking a little bit about the book. You've lived one of hospitality's greatest entrepreneurial journeys, we could argue. Why now? Why the book?
The book's purpose is to tie my life together in some semblance where I can look at it and says, that makes sense. That's why I did that. And so I look at the book as a way to tell stories and also to commemorate the memories I have of people, to commemorate, the special relationships that I have with Chris Sullivan, Bob Basham, my love of my life, Shannon, that people know what I think of them and to write about that and to document it, and I think that's important. A lot of people don't take time to recognize those people that made you who you are.
Just like you're saying, your partner didn't know some of the sacrifice you'd made up until the time they read that book.
No. And also for me to reflect on how he took out his checkbook and wrote a check for $10,000 so that I could be his partner in capital and never ask for it back.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't realize how much I remembered that and how important of a pivotal point that was in my life, that he did that for me, and I'll never forget it. We go through life, and finding the right partner is one thing, but recognize their value, continuing to do it with gratitude is a whole nother thing.
Well, it's another one of those tenets of hospitality, right? People don't always remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel.
Right.
You remember that right now.
That's right.
Who'd you write the book for? Was it for your family? You mentioned a little bit of it. Is it for other entrepreneurs?
I started it kind of for my family, because I didn't know how much appeal it had to other people. And then as I started writing it and realizing that this is a great story, it's a story of the success of Outback. And so I made it. Then I said, I think this could help other people that have dreams and haven't lived them out and don't have the boldness to make the right call, the right decision, to take a risk. They may not have that, and this book may empower them to take the leap of faith is what it takes for me to leave New Orleans. I had two young children in New Orleans that were 4 and 2 years old. It was very difficult for me to leave New Orleans.
Yeah. Well, what's that phrase? You miss 100% of the swings you don't take.
Yeah.
Imagine if you didn't take the swing.
That's right.
Yeah.
That I can't imagine that, if I would have made that transactional decision versus strategic. And that's a real lesson of my book is be strategic about your life. Do the things that are going to bring you long-term value and long-term happiness versus short-term. That's a lesson for everybody. I mean, if you look at our situation today, like in the Middle East, everything is transactional.
Yep.
He does this, we do that. No one's stepping back and being strategic about how do we solve all of this. There's plenty of money.
Yeah.
There's plenty of willpower to do the right thing, but there's a strategy that has to be overlaid over the entire Middle East to make all that come together.
Yeah. Thinking about when you wrote the book, right? I mean, there's probably many, many different sessions over probably a couple of years when you started putting this down. 5 years. And when I write, it tends to force reflection. Like, where was I in that moment? Was I thinking in that moment?
Yeah.
Taking you back to those moments, actually reliving them.
You're right.
Right. What was a story in there, Tim, that woke you up and said, "Oh my God, I don't remember that," and it drummed up something strong or evoked this feeling in you when you're going through and you're reading through the notes that you put down?
I think it's early on how important your family was. Your mother saying to you, "Make your money off your brains, not your back."
Boy, yeah.
That's a pretty powerful one.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in a physical, laborious industry like the restaurant business. This is money off your back.
Absolutely.
But you got to use your brains to create enough of them to where you can be successful. So, I think early on having that help, having mentors early on when I was went on an exchange program in Italy, in Florence, and learned Italian art. And I had a professor who spoke 9 languages.
Oh, wow.
He was brilliant. And he was head of the committee to rescue Italian art with Jacqueline Kennedy and Peggy Guggenheim. And I got to have lunch with him and Peggy in Venice.
Wow.
And watch him what he did in Florence to save Italian art after the flood in 1968. There was a flood there November 8th. And they washed all the artwork away. And he was in charge of bringing all that back. And so when I was in Florence and studying Italian art, learning from him, and then Norman Brinker, Steak and Ale, one of my first bosses, Olympic champion and a USPA polo player, and
Norman was?
Norman Brinker. Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
He's such a legend, but there's so many facets.
Yeah, he was an Olympic silver medalist. He was a USPA, won the U.S. Open, and he was chairman of the United States Polo Association. And he was a, great Texas businessman. I spoke at his funeral. 5,000 people
Wow.
came to that Dallas Symphony and played, and it was incredible. With Ross Perot was one of the speakers, and so we honored him. He was one of my early mentors.
Wow. In fact, I was just at the Texas Restaurant Association show in San Antonio.
Yeah.
Just last week. And during the presentation and the award ceremony, they still speak about Norman with huge amounts of reverence.
He was the
and
grandfather.
love.
He's where I met Chris Sullivan and Bob Basham. We all started at Steak and Ale.
Wow.
We all worked together. And he was a guy that formed the umbrella for most casual dining, the thinking. He started Steak and Ale, and it had 3 people that ran the kitchen: a grill cook, a dishwasher, and the guy that filled up the salad bar. Total efficiency that he could run and make money at whatever volume the restaurant was. He knew how to make money so that he could play polo.
So thinking about your book, was there a chapter that almost didn't make it? Somebody, I don't know if I'm going to put that in.
I think there's a lot of chapters that should have made it, that still need to be in there, and we'll figure that out as time goes on. But as I reflect back, I'm going, gosh, that was such a great story. We got a lot of them in there.
Yeah.
Taking a motorcycle across North Africa from London.
What?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great story. And it's in the book, and how I was in Morocco, and I was there traveling through Fez and Meknes, and how we had to escape different factions that were chasing us one night.
It was like Indiana Jones.
Oh, it was a great story. And then I brought the motorcycle back into Florence and took it all around through Athens. And, it was a great way to get around for me, to go to Rome and all around, and inexpensive. And, so it was so that was adventures. I was having adventures with little money, but a lot of imagination.
Okay, I got to ask, what was the motorcycle?
BSA Starfire 650. Okay. 650. BSA means British Small Arms.
Yeah.
They made motorcycles.
For the war, right?
Yeah. During the war. And they were a competitor with Triumph. And I love Triumphs too. That was
that was Steve McQueen's bike. Right?
Yeah. Triumph Bonneville. Yeah.
Wow. So if somebody reads the book and they get to the other side of it, what's the lesson you hope they take away from it?
Um, make your money with someone versus for someone. That's a tough one, but that's one I think you should always strive for, is trying to be in a business that you control more of your fate, being told what to do. There's always, every time I talk to someone, they said, oh, I hate the moment this guy, put his finger in my chest and told me to do this, and I knew it was the wrong decision. There's always those stories that you look back in life that you don't like about a job, a boss, or something that didn't agree with you. So you need more and more control to be able to control your environment and your path and whatever you're working on. I just talked to Dave Ellis, one of our first kitchen managers, head of the food department, and we talked about some of the frustrations that we went through trying to convince other executives about strategy that we believed in.
So Tim, you mentioned a couple of times how important partnership is, and you started with a handful of partners, and maybe not with the $1 billion vision where this thing ended up, right? What made that partnership work? And we talked about elements of trust, but what were the other things that were? Because it's almost alchemical. It comes together, and you have the right combination, you get that critical mass, and you've got something.
I think that you have to understand, and we talked about this at lunch today, is how to stay in your lane. How to know your lane, how to know what you're good at and stay there. There was a gentleman that came in here when we had been running a couple of months, and he came in with a big stack of real estate sites for me to look at. And I was there looking at them. It was slow at lunch. And Chris came by and saw this real estate stuff. And he says, Tim, you don't know anything about real estate. I said, yeah, I had seen this guy in a long time.
Right.
He wanted to show me some sites, and I thought maybe I could select something to show you. He says, and he looked at the guy that was standing there with me showing these real estate. He says, Tim Gannon is the greatest food guy in the United States of America. So what did that really mean? It means, Tim, get your ass back in the kitchen.
You're not in your lane.
Get in your lane. So, I think staying in your lane and respecting people that know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And even when people make, the other thing is, in partnerships, you have to let people make mistakes.
Absolutely.
Everybody, let them make a mistake and give them breathing room. And the other thing that Chris Sullivan was so good at is he would find somebody that was making mistakes. And like for me, I was the partner here, and schedules weren't getting put up on time. Petty cash didn't balance perfectly. The ceiling fans didn't spin at the right time. So he said, Gannon, you're not a general manager. You can't run a restaurant administratively.
Right.
You can do the food. So we made that change. Brought in a guy to run the restaurant, put the schedules up on time, count petty cash, get the ceiling fans turning right. And then I would go back into the kitchen and create more bloomin' onions. So it's critical that you stay in your lane, know what you're good at, and stay there, and respect people. And that means that the other people have to respect you for what you do.
Yeah.
And when you don't get that respect, that's very destructive. When you don't get the respect of who you are and what you can do, it's very humiliating.
Yeah.
And so if you're somebody of power, executive position, and you're castigating someone, especially when they know they're right and they're doing the right thing, and you're doing it just because you have power, that's very dangerous.
Yeah.
And very destructive.
Tim, thinking about the founding fathers of Outback, right? Each of you brought, like you said, you're the restaurant guy, the kitchen guy. Each of you brought your own superpower to the table.
Right.
What did each of the other guys bring that made this group, better as a whole than the individual parts?
Very simple. Chris brought vision. He brought tomorrow. Where are we going to be tomorrow? Where are we going to find the money for tomorrow? That's what he was. He was all about, where does Outback need to go to? Where does it need to grow? And how do we do that? What partners? When do we bring in, Paul Fleming from Fleming Steakhouse? That's Paul.
These are all legends you're talking about. Wow.
That's PF.
Yeah.
The PF of PF Chang's is Paul Fleming.
Learned something new today.
That's right. So, Fleming's, and so we brought him in as a partner. Johnny Carava, the finest Italian restaurateur in Texas, and we partnered with him. And the Bonefish guys, incredible. So bringing people in and learning how to partner with them, that was Chris. I mean, I give him all the credit for when do we go public? How do we go public? What companies do we use? Brokerage companies do we use to do that? We did it with Raymond James and Alex Brown, and they were great. It was a great IPO.
Wow. You had a mentor, Bud Healy, and he gave you some advice. It was find your Velcro?
Yeah.
What did that mean, and how did that impact you? And
well, I asked him, I said, listen, I want to become a polo player. And he said, son, you don't understand. It takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of money to become to be a polo player. I said, okay, well, how do you get a lot of money? I didn't know. I grew up without a father, 6 children, and parking cars. That wasn't a lot of money. And so it was enough to get me a 57 Chevrolet, which was good, but it wasn't a lot of money to play polo. So he told me the story of George Mistral, who is a Swiss watchmaker that came home from hunting with his dog, a big St. Bernard, and he pulled sand spurs off the dog. And it was 1948 when DuPont had created nylon. So he took nylon fibers and recreated the action of a sand spur with a loop and a hook.
Yeah.
And it created Velcro. He said, you got to go. He told me that story. He says, now, Tim, you got to go find your Velcro, and then take that into the marketplace, just like Mistral did from Switzerland. Then Velcro, they started using it for the astronauts, their ski instructors and pole. So you have to take your product and you got to get it to the marketplace. So when I saw the first Bloomin' Onion, I said, there's my Velcro right there, right in front.
Did you see it or did you invent this? Is this
invented?
Yours? Okay.
I worked with it. This Bloomin' Onion was invented. There was other ones that I had done in New Orleans, but this is the first Bloomin' Onion with this spice profile and the sauce. This is something I created here at this restaurant in this kitchen.
So I imagine there's some kind of patent around a device now that cuts it the perfect way, or are the chefs how are these being made?
There's no patents at all. The only patent there is the name Bloomin' Onion. That is copyright.
Yeah. That's
all, just the name. But no one can reproduce this because you got to build your kitchen around the idea that you're going to make these. And no one like Chili's wouldn't go and redesign all their kitchens just to add a product in like this. And if you don't redesign your kitchens, you'll never be able to produce this onion. So just think, each onion takes up one fryer almost.
Yeah,
so you get an order for 8 or 10 or 12 onions at one time, which is not a lot. And all of a sudden you got a jam in your kitchen, and they take 5 minutes to cook. So guess what? And you don't have a lot of tolerance for an appetizer. When someone orders an appetizer, you need to deliver that appetizer within 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Or they're hungry and they're like, hey, where's my food? And the Bloomin' Onion starts the dining experience. So it doesn't start until this gets served. So if you're late on this, you're going to be late on everything else.
Wow.
So the whole timing of the dinner sequence. And one of the things about Outback, by doing this, and then we offered a salad with the steaks, and then a steak entree, and then dessert, you got a 4-course meal. You're not a casual dining simple restaurant anymore. You're a 4-course complicated meal, and the sequences of those service sequences of giving 4 courses and trying to get them in and out in 48 minutes, tough.
Wow.
But it's not tough if you got your stuff together. If you're trained right and your kitchen's designed right. And that's where Bob comes in.
Right.
Bob was a kitchen design. He was operations. He was a guy that could look out in the dining room and see that we had a deal where the salad plate needed to come up and the entree come down.
Yep.
Salad up, entree down. That's how close. And Bob would just watch that and see how well we were doing.
He didn't need a time and motions.
No, he just looked at the dining room. And when people are doing this and waving their arms, he said, no, we're late.
So, and I know we're getting short on time because other people want to see here. I got so many questions. So if we just a couple more, thinking about the explosive growth of Outback, right?
Right.
You built something special. You trained people. You knew each one probably personally as you're developing this brand.
Right.
Now it's time to scale. How did you protect your culture?
You found there's one person for each country that was the right guy.
Okay.
And in Brazil, we had a guy named Peter Rodenbeck. Peter Rodenbeck was a Harvard graduate. He brought McDonald's to Brazil. He married a Brazilian girl. He spoke fluent Portuguese. He knew America and American culture. He knew how to develop restaurants in Brazil. So he was the perfect guy. And Brazil is off the charts successful. 150 restaurants in Brazil. Then we had a guy, E.T., in Korea. E.T., I still remember him. Phenomenal guy. When his restaurants were empty, he rented a bus to go to the army base and bring all the soldiers in.
Smart.
To bring them to Outback so they could use that as their place of
reverse takeout. You took in your customers.
Yeah.
Smart.
So, we had these different people that led the organization in these countries that represented our culture as good, sometimes better than we did. I would tell you that Brazil operates at a deeper commitment to our principles and beliefs than any other place in the world. And I mean, it's hats off to Brazil. There's no criticism about anybody else. It's just they're fanatics down there. I mean, if you go down there, they have it all written in Portuguese and pictures of the people that represent the greatest hospitalidade and qualidade and all that Portuguese I tried to remember. So no, it's so much fun when you find the right people, and it makes it so easy to find success. In Korea, we have 100 restaurants in Korea. And one of the things we had to do there was redesign our menus for family sharing, because the Koreans, average weight of a Korean is 140 pounds. That's different than America, as you and I both know.
I would think so, yeah.
So we had to cut the menu down and do it family sharing.
Yeah.
So all the entrees were shared like this. The beautiful thing about Bloomin' Onion is it's meant to be shared.
Yeah.
And sharing brings you back into tribal times of how we used to eat as a group around a campfire, whatever. So sharing food and learning how to share when you first deliver an appetizer, that's where the magic is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were talking about this in Texas recently, that you don't have to even speak the same language to share a meal, and food is really the international language. You can sit across from somebody and show that you love that meal, know that it was great or bad or
There's
whatever.
nothing better than sharing food.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tim, when we're looking at today and the advent of AI and technology permeating every single corner of what we do, from food costing to scheduling to all the other parts that make up the modern restaurant, right? We're also in a people business. And looking at that from your lens, what's the thing that should never change?
What should never change is the intimate relationship of a server and the client. And that is because the smile and the someone welcoming you and thanking you for coming, that's what should never change, because that's why people go out, is to feel like I was welcomed, I was well taken care of, and appreciated when I left. And, those things, AI, I mean, I go to hotels and you pick up the phone and you say, you make the phone call and it starts and it just never stops at the confusion of trying to order something that's a little complicated, and AI still doesn't get it right. And then you try and fix it with AI and it gets a mess after a mess after. Then it's so frustrating because you don't have a human being that you can say, hey, Annie on the other side, you know me, I've been coming here for a long time. This is what I like. You lose all of that.
Mm. When we think about your story, it wasn't always success after success after success. You even said within your own partnerships that failure was an option. In fact, failure was something you encouraged in a way, right? How did the failures you had mold this brand into the brand it is? Because there's things that you learned that you grew from.
Right. Yeah, there are a lot. There are a lot. I mean, failure. Well, we signed a deal with Jimmy Buffett, with a Cheeseburger in Paradise.
Mm.
And Jimmy was a great guy. I've known him from New Orleans, a super guy. Um, and he did a franchise agreement with us and a royalty agreement that just didn't work.
Mm.
And we should have known better. But anyway, we proceeded, built a bunch of restaurants. And then we went to Jimmy and just said, Jimmy, this isn't working. We got to lower the franchise fee. And he wouldn't do it. That's a problem. And so we had to end up severing the relationship and handing him all these restaurants that weren't making money for us. That was difficult. It was very tough, and especially because I like Jimmy and I like that he had a big heart and he just had a financial guy that was tough.
Mm.
So there are mistakes that we made, at Outback that you look back at and said, we could have avoided that if we moved slower and more methodical, more strategic versus transactional. And that's the key word, is to always remember how to be strategic in whatever you're doing,
Think about all the moving parts.
Yeah.
The story about the saddle, I want to come back to that. It's absolutely beautiful. And it feels like there's some kind of metaphor in it for entrepreneurship. What do you think the lesson is about the saddle?
Well, the saddle was hold on to something that you feel is yours, that is part of your destiny. That's the way you're going to be successful, is have some symbol. And mine was a saddle because I wanted to be a polo player. So it was a symbol for me to hold on to the saddle, rub the saddle, and feel good luck. And today I have the saddle. I bring it to speeches. It's 50-something years old, and I bring it to speeches. I let people rub it and rub the saddle for good luck. It brought me good luck. I think it did. Something did. I'm going to blame the saddle. I'm going to blame that saddle for bringing me good luck. And I think it's important to have some physical thing that you adore. That's
It's a symbol.
That's important. It's a symbol of what your life's about.
Yeah.
And mine was about adventure. So you take the saddle, you put it on a horse, you gallop down the road, right? And you go win polo games and play with King Charles and Patrick Hermes and Maharaja Jaipur and, blah, 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 play with the kings.
Yeah.
So the saddle is how I'm going to get there. So it was a perfect symbol for me of a physical entity that was a symbol of my life. I was going to call the book Saddle Up, but I didn't want the book to be too much about polo and horses. I wanted it to be more about entrepreneurship and adventure, that you can live a life full of adventure, make a lot of money, and do them both at the same time.
You don't have to make a choice.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Tim, if people are talking about your 50 years from now, Tim Gannon, what do you hope they remember about you?
I'm a flavorist, and I think I'm a flavorist, and a spiritual advisor to Outback now. And so I want to bring flavor to the world. I want to bring great flavors to the world and continue to do that. Continue to inspire Outback. We had a meeting this morning with the entire research and development team at Outback, who I think of them very dearly, and they're all committed. And I said, we need to rename you guys. Instead of chefs and research and development, sounds so clinical.
Right.
Why don't we call you
Flavor?
The Guardians of Flavor.
Oh, I like that I'm a superhero fan. That sounds great.
The Guardians of
The
Flavor.
Guardians of Flavor.
Yes.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. So we renamed them the Guardians of Flavor. So just think, when like Cassius Clay in his darkest days changed his name one day to Muhammad Ali. Just think what that change did for him. He had this kind of slave name, and all of a sudden was now Muhammad Ali. Praise to the highest.
Yeah.
And he considered himself not a boxer. He considered himself the greatest athlete
of all time,
the greatest athlete in the world. That's why he was chosen to carry the flag in the Olympics, to light the flag, because he was a great athlete, not a boxer. He was a boxer, but he branded himself as an athlete, and I thought that was brilliant of Muhammad Ali. Yeah, I'm a big fan of what he did and who he was,
especially for the time. It was a very brave move.
Oh,
yeah.
You talk about the courage of a guy and what he went through, unbelievable. But it's all about branding a name to become who you want to be, Muhammad Ali. So there's a lot of things in names and branding that are so important. There's a good story of General Eisenhower, who after World War II had a German name, was trying to run for president. So what he did was, instead of being Eisenhower, he said, his slogan became, I like Ike.
I like Ike.
So like and Ike became two of the same things.
Yeah.
So it's amazing what
that's
naming something and branding something. And that's why when I met with these guys, I said, think of yourselves not as cooks and R&D guys. Think of yourselves as a guardian of flavor. I mean, just think of that you have to guard flavor. That's your job.
And your job is to protect the culture, too.
That's right.
I love it.
That's right.
Last question. Your grandchildren are sitting across from you. You hand them the saddle. What do you hope they understand about life by representation of what that means?
Dream as big as you can dream and make sure that your dreams come true. Not all of them will come true, but never give up on them.
I love that, Tim. Thank you so much. This has been distinct honor. Distinct honor. For everybody that's watching today, thank you for joining us with this talk with Tim Gannon. And I have to tell you, this has been one of my favorites ever. The people you've met, the things you've done. I imagine you, the young man riding across the Saharan desert on your motorcycle, which seat is also called a saddle, strangely enough, right?
That's right.
It feels like there's a movie in here on top of your book. There could be somebody in there.
Yeah.
I mean, you are like an Indiana Jones.
Yeah. It was great fun tooling around North Africa and on this motorcycle and with a knapsack in the back and a camping.
No internet, no maps, no phone,
no cell phone,
just
nothing.
Plotting your way.
Yeah.
Something that you ended up doing your entire life is plotting your own route.
That's right.
God bless you, Tim Gannon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I've enjoyed it.
And for everybody that's interested in finding Tim's book, where it's available to now?
You can go to outbacktim.com. That's a website. That's where you'll get the cheapest version, least inexpensive, less expensive version. And outbacktim.com is where. And if you buy the book and enjoy it, please write a review. That's very helpful for me to get the reviews in.
And the name of the book again for everybody was?
Bloomin' Adventures.
Bloomin' Adventures.
Bloomin'
by
Adventures.
Tim Gannon.
Yeah.
That's fantastic, Tim. Thank you so much.
You bet.
I want a signed copy one day.
You will have one today.
Wow. I'll even do a cheers to a bloomin' onion to that one.
Yeah. Right.
I just had another excuse to eat it. Well, Tim, thank you so much.
Good, huh?
I forgot how good it is.
Yeah, really.
So for everybody, thank you so much. And if you have questions that you'd like to ask Tim, we can, please send them ahead and maybe we can put them in the comments when we post this and maybe we can get those answered for you. Absolutely. Fantastic. And are you going to be going on a book tour to share us with other people?
Yes, we're doing, we've done one in Australia. I went to Sydney and Brisbane and Melbourne and we did a book tour and it became #2 bestseller in Australia. Very happy about that. And now we're launching it in America and doing it on social networks and LinkedIn, and Steve Harvey's helping, different people that I've known Vanilla Ice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
We got a lot of different people that we've crossed paths with that love the story and love the book. So
That's fantastic.
yeah.
Well, everybody, this has been Tim Gannon, entrepreneur, CEO, co-founder of Outback, and now author of Blooming Adventures. For more information, check in the comments below. I'll give you links to where you can find his book. But for now, this is Michael Beck and Tim Gannon signing off here from the ChatGTM podcast in the mothership, the very place where it all started. Wishing you all a very blessed day, and may you also have the grit and resilience to follow your dreams, sacrifice your saddle, whatever in your life to make that thing happen. Take those swings you need to take. And also, as we always end with, random acts of kindness, sprinkle that stuff everywhere. You never know whose day you're going to make better, just like Tim made my day better spending time with me. Take care, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us for this very special edition of the ChatGTM podcast featuring Tim Gannon, co-founder of Outback Steakhouse, the creator of the iconic Bloomin' Onion, and best-selling author of Bloomin' Adventures. To get your copy, go to outbacktim.com. And until next time, keep building, keep innovating, and keep changing the game.